Here is the raw reality of making your first $1 million coming.
Why are you watching all those self-help videos? I'm learning and growing myself. Come on, be honest with yourself. Those videos just make you feel like you're making progress, but it's just an illusion. But I still need to learn more before I take action. I don't know all the answers yet. You already have all the answers. You're just avoiding them. Anyway, what makes these people's advice better than all the advice that you could give yourself? They were just the ones who chose to speak up, while you're here holding yourself back. Wake up! Have you ever had this conversation with yourself? It's an important conversation to have. You see, one of the biggest problems that holds us back is we're all searching for advice, but the problem with advice is that it doesn't work, almost ever. And it's one of the main reasons we find ourselves like I found myself in that last scene. To understand what I mean, let's take a pretty straightforward situation. Imagine you're 16 years old again and you want to go hang out with your friends. The thing is, you want to stay out with them until well past midnight. Of course, right? But then your parents object to that. I'm sure they would tell you something like, you shouldn't stay out past midnight because you have school the next morning, or because it's dangerous, or maybe even just because I said so. And how do you react as that 16-year-old? You're pretty much gonna rebel or brush off what they said, even if you do end up obeying them. But as adults, we're like this too. We never quite get out of this phase. And why? Because it's not really a phase at all. It's just a normal part of being a human being. When we hear a simple factual statement or even a command such as don't stay out past midnight, there's a part of our brain called the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex which processes this information. This region is responsible for logical reasoning and analysis, but it often doesn't interact with the motivational centers of our brain, such as those in what's called the limbic system. It's the same reason you've watched some video or read some book on finance or productivity, but then pretty much forgot everything you watched or read and still didn't take any action on it. Think about it. What was the last piece of self-help advice you received? Have you actually taken action on it, or did hearing it simply give you the illusion you were making progress? But the problem goes even deeper than that. It's that when we watch these videos or read these books, we treat the speakers almost as if they have all the answers and we have none. So because we over time adopt this mindset, we start ignoring the most directly useful and relevant advice of all, our internal advice. And this is a powerful concept we'll circle back to. But let's back up for a moment first. I'm not saying that when we hear things like go to sleep earlier, invest in assets, go to the gym, be a better listener, and all these kinds of things that they aren't reasonable things to do. They are very reasonable things to do. But what I am saying is that the idea of giving advice itself is a problematic concept, because to put it bluntly, most people giving you advice, especially influencers, have no idea who you are and what your life is like. Now, before you jump to conclusions as to what I mean by this, let's just take the following very simple example of using, say, the Pomodoro technique, which is a very popular productivity technique. Now, you hear this influencer telling you that you should use this technique because it's so effective and so helpful, and so you decide to try it out. But then you realize there are 10 other productivity hacks out there, and then another 10 you discover. Those look helpful too, but which of these will be most helpful for you? You know, these tips all look so interesting. Plus, you're currently taking care of your sick family member and are also dealing with figuring out how to pay the tax bill that just came in. So right now might not be the best timing to use this technique anyway. And maybe rightly so. Your priorities are elsewhere. So then where does this advice end up? Simply as another footnote in our long list of useful productivity hacks. The advice we hear never turns into action because it never makes its way into the emotional limbic system in our brain. That is, into our sphere of priorities. And this idea of priorities here is key to understand. When we were hunter-gatherers, we were faced with lots of information coming at us in our environment. So we had to very quickly sift out what was information we would act on, such as a hungry lion in front of us, and what was information such as how long the blades of grass under our feet are that we shouldn't act on. So biologically speaking, in order for advice, as it's typically thought of, to actually be useful real and relevant to us, it needs to make its way into the emotional limbic system in our brain. It needs to jump out at us as immediately important, just like that lion, in order for us to act on it. And the thing is, that's virtually impossible for a simple statement of advice to achieve. Because, just understand, if you or someone else are not acting on some piece of advice, it's because you have some other priority, some other big lion or two or three that's currently engaging your limbic system, motivating you to act in a different way. And every person is being chased by a different set of lions. So then if most productivity, finance, and general self-help advice isn't actually effective for most people, then what is? How can we not only find the right next steps in our lives that apply to our specific situation, but also tap into the motivation required to execute on those steps? Well, that's where the concept of internal advice I mentioned before comes in. Why do you say I already know all the answers? I feel like I'm clueless. But you're not. Be honest. What are you really avoiding? Start there. You see, in a sense, nobody is really qualified to give you advice. Nobody knows your specific situation, your specific values, or your specific needs, but you do. What could you do now that, if you did it, would improve your life for at least the next 24 hours? That's a start. The philosopher Aristotle invented a concept called the doctrine of the mean. He argued that virtue is never found at the two extremes of what he called a spirit, or what we might today call a character trait. So while on one extreme, it would be foolish to say that you'll never listen to any ideas offered by successful people because they probably have a lot of value to share, it would be just as foolish to think you yourself don't already have a lot of good ideas and value to share. You see someone on YouTube or wherever giving advice and you start to idolize them, and unknowingly you start silencing your own voice, your own ideas, your own solutions, which are exactly the kinds of solutions that one, will fit into your particular life situation, and two, will actually motivate you to take action on them. The perfect model of this in my own life was when I was in college and we had a philosophy club, and we actually grew to a decent sized group. I know, a philosophy club. Each week, we would have a specific topic to discuss, and everyone would express their own opinion and ask each other ideas. It was in this environment that I started to clarify my own ideas even more, and over time completely change many of them too. Sure, we weren't discussing self-help or productivity hacks, but the principle here is the same. It's only by speaking up and offering your own idea that it gets critique, feedback, and becomes clearer. This doesn't happen by passively watching a video or reading a book. It happens through conversation. You see, even when I started out posting on YouTube, even with my years of experience with the topics I'm talking about, I had that conversation with myself. Who am I to give advice? Am I really qualified to be giving advice here? But then I remembered an experience I had back in high school at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. One of my favorite teachers of all time was leading us around the gallery, and one of my friends at the time pointed to one of the modern art exhibits, and this exhibit was literally a series of rocks arranged in a circle, you know, like modern art. And my friend said, "Man, I could have done that." And the next thing the teacher said made such a huge impact on me. He responded simply, "But you didn't." The point is, I'm not doing something you can't do. It's simply that I chose to overcome my discomfort and do it. You can choose to offer your value in your own way, even if that's simply having the courage to call up a friend or family member you haven't spoken to in 5 years. The truth is, you have insights worth hearing that are being wasted. Any opportunity where you can share your stories and experiences, whether that's a regular mastermind group, a presentation you give, or simply some feedback you give, activates parts of your brain associated not only with learning, but with motivation. You have value in what you want to say and express that someone can benefit from. I'm the one sharing here, but have the courage to do the same and you'll force your brain to discover solutions, that internal advice that will actually be useful to you. Because admit it, we've all had impactful experiences in life. We've all had ups and downs and lessons we've learned, so the answers are already there, locked up in your own life, locked up within your own story. You just have to unlock them. So really, that's why self-help advice doesn't work. It has its place, but the only thing we can possibly do to help someone else move forward is to empower them to reach the highest level of consciousness they possibly can, and then allow them to make their own decisions in that state of consciousness. Ultimately, nobody's advice will motivate you. It's only the advice you realize yourself and accept into your heart that you'll act upon. Hey guys, I've recently designed a system for personal and professional development that incorporates all the truths about self-help I've covered in this video. And my mission with this system is to help create the next generation of impactful leaders. I've combined years of experience in academic coaching, sales training, and the sciences to bring you a 3-phase system to take you from feeling lost to complete life fulfillment in whatever career, profession, or life path you choose. And it's called the Life Navigator system. In phase 1, we create a completely personalized, comprehensive plan to help you discover your next steps in life. With weekly group coaching, almost daily correspondence between you and me, and a structured and fun accountability system, I'll be holding your hand throughout the entire process. In phase 2, we take that new sense of clarity you have about your goals and implement my proprietary skill mastery system together to help you learn the exact skills you need for your new life path, whether that's coding, sales skills, learning a new language, whatever. In phase 3, we then help you complete a real project, whether that's a business plan, a career strategy, or pretty much anything else, and strategically help connect you with the people and resources to make that happen. The first 10 people who click the link in the pinned comment below and enter the code LEVELUP at checkout get their first month free, and you can cancel anytime. So what advice do you have for yourself? Don't just sit there. Get up and take action. If you want to keep learning how to use your critical thinking to live an impactful life, then be sure to watch this next video.